Yo, what's up guys? Chapter 1120 is here at One Piece and it is an absolute banger. Not just because a few things that we speculated on came true this chapter, but just overall was a banger of a chapter. Like, from content to actual action, it was pretty good all the way around. Just like we speculated on the last chapter or before, Atlas would not be coming back. This was definitely a one-way trip. We know how Oda writes, and sometimes he can throw a curveball, but I seen this one coming and I like it. But before we get into it, if you like cool and chill One Piece content, think about giving us a sub or a like. Definitely is appreciated as we are on the road to 1K. Join the Cold City. We start the chapter with a 26-year-old flashback with Vegapunk and Clover having a conversation. I like this for a couple reasons. First, it gives more context to not only Vegapunk, but his relationship with the world government. On top of that, it allows Clover to become a more fleshed out character who's been dead for hundreds and hundreds of chapters at this point. We see Clover try to recruit Vegapunk in a help to research the Void Century. And to be honest, it makes sense. Vegapunk is the smartest man in the world. We see one of the key factors in Clover even wanting to do research on an ancient history was pretty much because his brother was murdered by the government, or assuming CP, and he was taken out for having the initial D in his name. And then we learned from there that Clover was a D member himself. This incident right here, I think, was one of Clover's biggest motivations when it came to uncovering the ancient history, and I mean, it's clear to see why. Something I've noticed about the world government is that most of the time they seem to create their own problems. Every time they try to shut down, stifle, or hide something, it usually ends up making it more known. Every time they try to silence or get rid of somebody, even if they are successful, that just means that the next person to inherit that person's will is just going to want to do whatever they want to do, even that much more bad. And I mean, kind of like that in the real world. Vegapunk, on the other hand, we see why he felt so bad in the end and why now in the present he was going so hard to get this information out there. When it comes to his relationship with the world government, he was like that person in a toxic relationship who really doesn't want to acknowledge how toxic it is and just kind of pretend it's not there. He knew the world government had been up to some shady dealings the whole time, but sometimes it's easier just to pretend that it's not there. For him, it was okay as long as he was able to do his research and, have his funding. But at the end of the day, he knew they were up to no good. You see that the O'Hara incident really weighed heavy on his heart. And I mean, I like it because when O'Hara first happened, it was kind of shown that the only one who really cared about it was Robin. And I mean, I guess Aokiji a little bit. I like that we get to see that other characters in the world did care that it happened. It is not something just to be glossed over. Moving on, something I 100% seen coming was Atlas. Like, it was written on the walls. I seen it. I just knew it. Give me my dub. Atlas flies in and knocks out Lilith to disconnect her from Punk Records and from her being detected by York. I do have a small issue with this, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. If York was able to disconnect and do stuff without them knowing, I feel like they should be able to do the same. Maybe it's different when you're not trying to, be perceived by other Vegapunks, but yeah, maybe that's the case. Either way, she decides to stay back and try to hold off Ethan a little bit so the rest of the Straw Hats can get away. And I mean, it's an admirable move. Like, I like that for her. Alice was always cool, but yeah, she goes out like a G. As the rest of the Straw Hats escape with a coup de burst, she blows herself up so she can hold back Ethan for just a little bit. Clearly, we know they can regenerate and have like crazy regeneration, but just had to buy enough time so the guys to get away. It's just another constant reminder of how many people have really sacrificed themselves for the Straw Hats to, be able to succeed and do the things they do. We have Pedro, Edison, Mr. Two, and I mean now Atlas, but there's also countless others who have been instrumental in the Straw Hats journey. Something else we kind of knew or predicted what happened would be Luffy having this little moment with the Iron Giant. The Iron Giant is super happy to meet Luffy. He's all, joy boy, I'm happy to meet you again. And in typical Luffy fashion, he's just like, like, who are you talking to? Like, so Luffy. And then he tells Luffy, your enemy is my enemy. I've come to fight for you just like again, Joy Boy. Now, when he says come to fight for you again, that kind of threw me for a loop because I'm trying to figure out, what does he mean? Does he mean early in the fight when he first got up? Does he mean 200 years ago when he went to marry Joa? Or does he mean way back in the Void Century when he fought for Joy Boy? Probably that, but then what happened? Why wasn't he actually there to help Joy Boy? Or what happened to him? Chapters and chapters ago, I said that I believe that he will blow himself up pretty much so the Straw Hats can get away. Because, I mean, realistically, I don't know what else he could really do because he's all rusted out and stuff like that. So that's what I think he's going to do. And towards the end of the chapter, I think that's what we're kind of getting a hint towards. Jupiter then comes in for an attack, and we actually see the Iron Giant kind of wind up his arm like he's going to do something. But he's super rusty, so it's not really working. Something of note here is that when the Iron Giant winds his arm back to do his attack, it's low-key reminiscent of how Luffy used to wind his arm back when he would do the Gum Gum pistol back in the day. That's kind of what it reminds me of and gives me the same vibes. Which a little bit gives me the idea of like, was some of his moves modeled after Joy Boy, or like, did Joy Boy actually create them? Either way, it's a fail and Peter just chomps off his whole arm and a little bit of his side. Then I believe it's Saturn who says, the last 900 years have rendered those weapons inoperable. But I think this will play into the Iron Giant favorite, as I think this is going to make them let their guard down around him, which they absolutely should not. Saturn then jumps off Jupiter back onto the ship and immediately starts to go for Bonnie and Kuma like ASAP. Saturn is by far my least favorite Gorosei, in which I mean that I hate him. Like he's really the worst. Like he's the worst kind of worst. And the more I think about it, I think Bonnie might have a hand when he's finally defeated. Like, it only makes sense. From there, the rest of the Straw Hats on the Sunny finally bust through the clouds and are on their way down to the rest of the guys. Atlas sacrificed herself so they can get away, and we see York over there celebrating because she believes she's the last Vegapunk standing. Not really though. Something else of note is that in this chapter, to me, maybe it's just to me, but Luffy looks a lot more Gear 5-y. Like, he looks a little bit more cartoony. I don't know if it's because he's in such close proximity to the Iron Giant, or if it's because he's just went Gear 5 so many times back to back to back, but I don't know. He just look a little bit more cartoony, or might just be how Oda drew him. Back to the chapter though, as it's wrapping up, we get this super cool panel of the Iron Giant just standing there facing down the Gorosei, and I mean, it's just badass, I'm not gonna lie. Like, he looks kind of cool, his arm is gone, and he's just like determined. He then mentions, this is the time you spoke of, Joy Boy, like asking like, is this the time? And then he says, can I use it? Off top, this gets me hyped because I think he's going to use like some super cool ancient tech, but my heart tells me he's just going to do like some crazy super, like maybe like nuclear fission explosion. Like, he's going to do something crazy, but it's probably going to be an explosion. Something else is that it seems like whatever happened in the Void Century, however it ended when the ancient civilization was taken down, it seems like Joy Boy was able to have a conversation with all his people and like, you know, give them his last will and message. Or he was maybe able to do it via Voice of All Things, which kind of sounds like it might be the actual option. Throughout this whole time, Vegapunk has still been doing his transmission, and then he says that Goldie Roger did something where he pretty much circumvented the whole world, so he knows that he definitely knows the truth. Now Vegapunk is about to go full YouTuber and says that he's about to give his predictions for the future, which I think we're going to get some crazy stuff, as, you know, Vegapunk is not only the smartest man in the world, but I can imagine he could put 2 and 2 together. Only thing I wish he would do is to simply call out the world government. Like, that's the only thing I really wish he would have did in the transmission, but I mean, maybe he knows that that will probably cause a little bit of an upheaval, or maybe he just doesn't want to do it. But dude, you know the Gorosei are evil. Like, let it be known. But yes, that's where the chapter wraps up, and I am super hyped. Like, we are at a place in the story right now where it's just unprecedented. Like, every chapter we are getting new clues, new hints, and I mean, it's just a great time to be a One Piece fan. Like, literally, it is. Like, no other way to put it. Like, I love it here. Let me know what you think below, though. Like, comment, share, all that stuff, and welcome to the Cold City.